Dearly loved friends and family, present here in this sanctuary this morning and elsewhere remotely through the live stream or watching a recording later. Welcome to our celebration of the life of Maria Suarez. I'm Chaplain Nikki Kleinberg. I've come from Philadelphia, as I did in 2004 when I first met Maria. I'm here to help shepherd us through this very surreal and meaningful moment together, to celebrate Maria's life, to mourn our loss, and to commend her to the greater mysteries of love, time, and nature. If you haven't already, please turn off your cell phone or silence it, and maybe quiet any other devices you have on you. So by way of introduction, just for another moment, I want to share that I know and love Maria. I was almost 23 years old when I arrived her backyard from Philly with the stinky neo-hippie crew of the Me Without You family. The first time recording with Brad in his newly established Seagrass studio. Maria welcomed us warmly into her home with great curiosity. She had an infant Vanessa bouncing on her hip. They were exploring together the delicacies of textures, of tastes, of sounds, of smells. And Olivia on the back deck, reading about the boy who lived while creating stories of her own. And like many of you, I was immediately drawn to Maria, a beautiful and clever and opinionated woman, a healthy parent who fully celebrated her kids and followed their lead. As a young adult, she helped me grow up. I've known her almost half my life. She helped me choose to be the kind of adult I would be. I was the parent that I was because of a lot of her encouragement. We exchanged so many emails over the years. I have so many direct quotes that I wanted to include here, but I will save them and give them to you guys later. Being with her is a delight on its own, but in her good company and her interest in each of our lives, she's opened us to a greater sense of our own selves as creative, as good readers, for me as even a person of the cloth, a married person and a mother. So even as I stand here now, I feel her unique role in my life as a gracious guide through life's natural stages and all the mysteries unfolding. As a friend of Maria, a chaplain, a deacon in the United Methodist Church, I welcome you to this couple hours together. And on behalf of Brad, Olivia, and Vanessa, I especially thank you for being here. This service of celebration is meant to last for probably not long enough, followed by a reception downstairs, and here's how it'll go, barring any surprises. In a moment, we will pause for mindful reflection and prayer, and then I will read an elegy, not to be confused with a eulogy. The elegy is a poem of sorrow and lament that expresses something of the shock and trauma of Maria's sudden departure. Then we'll move into the collaborative eulogy, prepared words and song, reflecting something of the goodness of life with Maria. And to end our service, all are welcome to join in reading or reciting the Lord's Prayer as Maria learned it in the Catholic communities of her youth and her family tradition, and the words are printed in the program. Brad shared that over the years, he and Maria would discuss which version of the Lord's Prayer was better. The Catholic version, debts versus trespasses, or the Presbyterian version that Brad learned with the extra doxology, courtesy of King James. So today, in honor of Maria, we're going to close by reciting the Catholic version. And when it's time for this prayer, you are welcome to participate or to sit it out in any ways that are most comfortable for you. You can pray these words with the confidence of a child of God. You can find respectful and quiet stillness in your own body. You can speak them as a unifying gesture. Any way you are moved, you are welcome. We will say amen at the end, and then Tom Petty will lead us into everything that comes next. So may our time together fulfill our intention to celebrate Maria and provide comfort and community for the ongoing grief of her absence. May the sensation of Maria's presence be accessible to you now and through the rest of your life. And may something within this gathering and these people here become for you the possibility of a miraculous bridge between life and death. Amen. Bathrooms and water are in the back. Tissues are distributed throughout this whole space. If at any point you do need to get up and move around, that would be very natural, and you are free to do so. At some point, do sign the guest books. Take home a packet of seeds from Maria's garden that Jim carefully gathered for us. And now, please stay in your seat and take just a moment to greet a couple of people in your immediate proximity. And if you're on YouTube, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, and I will call us back together in only 60 seconds.
Behind the stars, a yellow moon on the rise, big birds flying across the sky, throwing shadows in our eyes, leaves us helpless.
All right, back to center. Yes. And if you would, feel free to shift in your seat. If you would, feel your feet on the ground. And just for this moment, we will share mindful reflection and or prayer with your eyes open or closed. Notice where your body connects to the ground, the top of your head drawn skyward. Notice your breathing body expanding and contracting, filling and emptying. And in this moment, please deepen your inhale and completely exhaust your exhale. Notice the weight of your life held on the ancient ground underneath you, stable and moving, on the land long cared for by the Fernandino Tataviam, the Chumash, and the Tongva people. In this jazz-era sanctuary built under the leadership of a charismatic woman named Amy. Surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, benevolent ancestors, and a variety of species, seen and unseen, in and among you, you are in a comfortable and unhurried setting among friends as we orbit together on this blue spinning planet against the backdrop of a mostly dark, empty, and ever-expanding universe. So with a moment of silence, attention, and spiritual imagination, turn inward, locate yourself in the family of things, and feel free to quietly lift up your prayers. So it goes. So before I read the elegy, I'd like to invite up Matt Murgis and Jim Rodney to sit with me up here. They will begin our collaborative eulogy. But first, an elegy with the words of W.H. Auden in the poem Funeral Blues. Stop all the clocks, cut off the telephone, prevent the dog from barking with a juicy bone, silence the pianos, and with muffled drum, bring out the coffin, let the mourners come. Let airplanes circle, moaning overhead, scribbling on the sky the message, she is dead. Put crepe bows round the white necks of the public doves. Let the traffic policemen wear black cotton gloves. She was our north, our south, our east, our west, our working week and our Sunday rest, our noon, our midnight, our talk, our song. We thought that love would last forever, but we were wrong. The stars are not wanted now. Put out every one. Pack up the moon, dismantle the sun. Pour away the ocean and sweep up the wood, for nothing now can ever come to any good.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Murgis. I may be, aside from Maria's family, I may be the person here who knew her the longest. I met Maria in high school. She was a sophomore and I was a freshman. We met in drama club. We became immediate friends because we shared a similar contrarian view, natural-born contrarians, and also had the same sense of humor. You might call it snarky, sarcastic, or even biting. We became very quick and close friends after that, and soon we gathered around us another tight-knit group of friends, Valerie and Tony, and other friends. Most of us were quite artistically inclined at that time. Maria, of course, was a dancer, as you know. I was more of a musician, and our friends had their pursuits. At that time, South Florida was not particularly friendly to people with that sort of inclination, so we banded together, particularly being in Catholic high school. We banded together because we kind of already felt that we were adults and that we should be adults and very much wanted to be out of Florida and out of our parents' home. We banded together to survive those years together, but Maria was really a ringleader for us in many ways. She was the most confident, worldly, sophisticated person I had ever met of any age, even at 16 years old. She introduced me to so much of the world that I didn't know. As I said, she was worldly beyond her years. She knew about art. She knew about literature from all over the world. She introduced me to music I had never heard of, bands that are still my favorites. It's not an exaggeration to say that her influence on me probably influenced later decisions to live and work overseas. We survived those years together, and of course, the time eventually came for us to graduate. We were very glad to graduate and leave. We went off to respective colleges. Maria, of course, went to Chicago. I stayed in Florida. But after about a year or so, we stayed in touch. We would talk a few times on the phone, but more often writing letters. And I think if you've gotten a letter from Maria, you know her distinct handwriting. That would always cheer me up. We'd keep ourselves apprised of what was going on in our lives. We decided, not together, but just sort of coincidentally, that we didn't really know what we were doing in college. We didn't really have a direction. All the things that we thought were going to happen weren't materializing. And so we both just coincidentally decided to leave college and move back to South Florida and back into our parents' homes. And as I was remembering this, I just realized that it was exactly 40 years ago this month. It was May of 1986 that this happened. We came back together as friends then, utterly dejected, because at that time there was no concept of a gap year like we have now. There was just, you were either in college or you failed. And we felt like complete failures. We felt like we had completely screwed our future. Bear in mind, we were only 19, 20 years old at the time, but at that age, it feels very real. We survived those days. She took a waitressing job. I was working for my father in Miami at a boatyard, scraping barnacles off of boats for minimum wage. So we were truly at the bottom. We survived by hanging out a lot. In my memory, Sugi, you probably remember, I would hang out at the house quite often. We'd rent a movie, we might go see a movie, but a lot of times we would just drive around and talk, and we would vent our frustrations, talk about what wasn't going right, what we really wanted to be doing. And I want to tell a couple quick stories from that time. The first one is that one night when we were driving around Miami Shores, we passed by a church. Sorry, Pastor. we passed by a church, and it had one of those signs out front it was lit up, and they put like Bible verses on it and so forth. It was at ground level. On this particular night, the slogan on there said, "No life is so broken that God cannot fix it." Now, any normal couple of people in our position might have read that and felt hope and inspiration. But if you know Maria, and if you know me, that's not at all our interpretation. We just howled with derisive laughter at that. What we thought was pablum, garbage, just a stupid, who would put something like that up there? And I don't, to this day, know whose idea it was, but one of us had the idea of, well, if you took the word no out of that phrase, then that would be a church saying, life is so broken that God cannot fix it. Maria looked at me and she says, I dare you to go up and take that off the sign. And I wasn't going to shrink from that, so I said, okay, drive me up to the front and I'll do it. So she did. She drove in her little car up to the front. I run up. It was actually quite easy. Took the word no. Again, sorry, Pastor. Ran back to the guard, jumped in, and for a few seconds we sat there just howling at the top of our lungs because here was a church that was finally saying what we felt. Life is so broken that even God can't fix it, so just give up already. Another quick story from that time, and Sugi, I don't know if you remember this, but we were hanging out, again, another day we were just feeling down in the dumps, feeling sorry for ourselves, and you looked at us and you started laughing. And you said, guys, come on, this is not the end of the world. You're only 19, 20 years old. You're just taking a break from college. You'll see. You're going to figure it out. You're going to get back on your feet, and you're going to be just fine in life. At the time, we didn't believe it. But of course, Sugi, you were right. That's exactly what happened. And I think toward the end of that almost year that we spent together, again, banding together in survival, we matured a lot. Even though we may not have found exactly what we wanted to do, we certainly knew what we didn't want to do. And at the end of that, we both went off again. Maria went back to Chicago, and she met many of you wonderful people there. I went off and finished school and had my career and moved overseas. We kept in touch. She would write letters quite often. And I remember one day when I was living in Japan, I got a letter from her, and she was talking about her life and things that were going on, and the fact that she had met this really wonderful guy called Brad Wood. And I knew from the way she wrote the letter and the photos that she was sending, I said, okay, this is the one. This is the one. Now, I want to tell you that, when we were teenagers, we talked a lot about what we wanted to do in life and what our plans and dreams were. One of her dreams that I remember distinctly from her teenage years was that she planned to grow up, have a career, get married, and have daughters. And she specifically said daughters. And her plan was that she wanted to move with them to a desert island and that she would teach them herself from her own books and her own education and her own experience. I think Olivia and Vanessa, I think we can say that aside from the desert island part, that dream came true. I saw a side when Maria became a mother. I saw a side of her I had never seen before, and it was absolutely wonderful. She was just the most wonderful, devoted, and loving mother that anyone could want. So I just wanted to conclude with saying a few words to Maria, and I don't know if you can hear me, but I just wanted to say thank you for having an incredibly positive impact on my life. Thank you for being there when I needed you, and thank you for being my friend. Thank you.
I have visual aids. So when Brad asked me if I wanted to speak today, I was hesitant at first. Suffering in silence is my default, generally. This grief has felt so socially unacceptable, not allowed to talk about things. But I just want to talk about Maria all the time to everybody. I don't want to subject you all to what I really want to do every day, which is just scream and scream and scream until I pass out and don't care if I regain consciousness again. But obviously want to keep things positive. I don't want to give you the impression that I'm angry, which I am. or that I'm heartbroken, which I absolutely am, or sad, miserable, depressed, feeling helpless and hopeless. So yeah, that too. I'm going to keep things positive and celebrate all things Maria. She's the most important person in the world to me, my most favorite person in the world, by a very wide margin and for decades. If you thought it was you, I'm sorry. It was not. I just wanted to clear up that confusion. I was utterly devoted to Maria, and that devotion extended to her garden, which, if you've been by the house at all over the last several years, you couldn't help but notice the garden. Maria ruined my life with the garden. Because of my devotion and because I get obsessed with things, she took full advantage. And she had me working the garden every day, pretty much. And that garden was overwhelming even when Maria was around, because she was there to make the decisions. I would do all the chores. And now that she's gone, it's even more overwhelming. So if you want to help out at any stage, find me afterwards. Part of that garden is here today, which some of you have these seed packets. And I do want to thank my garden team of Walean, Kelly, Eli, and Peyton, who helped out. There is a dozen different seeds in here, which I wrote down. For all you garden nerds, if you want to know what's inside, it is mostly the flowers that Maria loved. And Maria loved beauty. And 10 years ago, I didn't know any of these flowers or care. But now, finally, because I would keep asking her, what's this flower or what's that flower? And she'd have to tell me sometimes repeatedly and get mad. But now, of course, especially over the last several weeks, I was in the garden every day, usually in the evening hours when the sun is going down. It's super quiet, plant by plant, snipping flowers that were ready for seed. And those are mostly flower. So calendula, California poppy, marigolds, scabiosa, which is the coolest seed pod in the world, by the way. You will see the seeds after they've been removed from here. They look like little badminton birdies, which I guess, because we don't need them right now. I just killed that one, sorry. Okay, that one clearly is not ready to be seeded. So it literally looks like a little birdie. Then there's lacy phacelia, which looks like a fuzzy caterpillar. These two are my favorites just because they're the coolest thing. Damn you, Maria. Then there are cosmos, a bunch of different kinds, daisy, borage, which the bees love. And then there are three culinary plants, cilantro, scallion, and sculpit, which can be used kind of culinarily. And anybody who knew Maria, of course, knew that she was an amazing chef. And so these seed packets, I like to think, are a curated sliver of Maria's garden with both beauty and usefulness, I guess, in the kitchen. And the hope, of course, is that you will take these. If you have a yard, great. If you have an apartment and a balcony, get a grow bag, put some dirt in there, plant these. But anywhere in the world, if you're in a park, you're in a forest, you're on the side of a street, just throw some seeds around. And those of you here in California, because we're supposed to have El Nino, there's going to be a crap load of rain this winter, and so you'll know what to do. Yeah, Maria was awesome. Just wanted to say that again. Let me take all my parts.
Thank you so much. At this time, you guys can go back to your seat. We're going to appreciate some music. Sometimes song will do what speaking can't. And so while we're going to do the song in a second, but I do want to invite up Chris Suarez and Trisha O'Connell to speak afterwards.
I wake up crying, you're making rain, and you're just in reach. When you in sleep escape me, you're like my own.
Hello, my name is Chris, and I'm Maria's brother. I still can't believe she's gone. Maria was the intellectual of our family. She wrote for her high school newspaper. She could read several books at a time and finish them. And Maria successfully grew a dozen different vegetables in her home garden, and that's not an easy thing to do. She was also an incredible cook. Maria was always on a mission, and she did everything with intention and passion. When she set her mind to something, she did it, and she did it well. And Maria was also smart as hell and honest. In fact, Maria was probably the one person that I could go for advice, advice with no sugarcoating, no pretending. She wouldn't hesitate to say, "Chris, you're being a creep." And my sisters had many different names for me, just want to let you know. And all in all, that's what I admired most about her. She had integrity, and if she gave you her word, you could take that to the bank. Growing up, Maria was also one of the first punk rockers I ever knew. She dyed her hair blue before that kind of thing was common. And as you know, Maria went against the grain her entire life, and she never apologized for it. That independent spirit stayed with her her entire life. Maria also loved film. When we were teenagers, our formative years, Maria dragged me to see movies like Blade Runner, Jaws, E.T., to name a few. Movies at the time I had no interest in seeing. Turns out the little smart aleck read the reviews, and she was right. They were excellent movies. These were movies that defined our era at the time. And Maria was a film critic all the way up until the end. But more than anything else, Maria loved her husband and her daughters. They were the center of her life and the greatest joy in her life. Maria was born in Saigon, and we lived there for part of our lives before we moved to Miami. And maybe that's part of why she looked at the world a little differently than the rest of us. I will miss my sister deeply. I will miss her intellect, her honesty, her fearlessness, her unique style. And my grandkids will miss an inspiring grand aunt. God bless Maria. Thank you.
Sorry. Is that okay? Lower. Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm Tricia O'Connell. Oh, Maria. She was intellectual. She was earthy. She was generous. She was magnetic. And she was so witty, and one of the most alive people I've ever known. Maria was unafraid to offend, to challenge, to give her opinion, and she always had an opinion, to call out injustice where she saw it, but also to work hard and to help her friends out. And one of the things I loved about her was how she laughed totally, wildly, and with abandon. She'd lean in while telling a story and let out a literal guffaw, which was often punctuated with a cartoonish but totally genuine, like slap to the knee. You know, she would just be so there. I met Maria in Chicago, my first year after college, and found in her a kindred spirit, a feisty young fellow feminist who wanted to explore the world and make her mark in it. She was born in Saigon to a Korean mother and a New York Cuban American father, but grew up in Miami. She studied dance there and retained this kind of cute outturned stance that dancers have, almost like a penguin, and a very graceful way with her hands. Miami had a large international population and is kind of known for its bright colors and bold patterns and loud music and loud people. And she definitely brought all of that spice to Chicago. and my life is so much richer for having known her. So let's honor the qualities that she embodied that we don't see too often, and remember that it's important to gather together, to tell stories, to laugh often, to eat what you want, and to love fiercely, just as she did. Not a one of us is guaranteed a long life, but it's still hard to process the immense loss we're feeling at her passing, and to know that we won't grow old together. I always thought that she and I would be two quirky old ladies together, like Louise Bourgeois or Maude from Harold and Maude, correcting the youngsters, playing against character by being outspoken and out and about, living totally full lives. I'm gonna put my glasses on. Maria. How do you solve a problem like Maria? Maria, who was independent, complex, hard to rouse in the morning, always smoking, or used to be, opinionated, passionate, provocative, loving. Maria loved challenging the status quo. Went to prom in the early 80s at her very Catholic high school with her drag queen club buddies and Matt. She was a natural storyteller and a voracious reader with a keen intellect. And she would have been a natural on the stage at the Moth. She knew how to tell a story with an arc and a twist, building and building and building, getting more colorful and louder as she went along, bursting into laughter and vigorously smiling and nodding her head at the end for emphasis to make sure you got it. And we all got it. She was so engaging, charismatic, always inquiring how your kids are, how your mom was, how your life was, relishing any salacious details you would care to share with her. She studied film production and was a fantastic producer, and we worked together in Chicago and in Los Angeles for years. Maria was a great delegator, and that is not an easy skill. And she had an unusual ability to get people to do stuff for her. And part of that is because she had a real genuine enthusiasm. She was forthright. She came out and she just straight up told you what she wanted you to do. So when she asks for things, people usually said yes. My son was over one time and she said, "Sort those tomatoes." And he was like, "Okay." Doesn't do that for me, but it's like if someone tells you what to do, you do it sometimes. She was a stubborn bear for sure, but one who could make things happen and make them fun. Maria, she walks like she don't care, smooth as silk, cool as air. 37 years later, I still remember the first night I met her. At a random house party in Wicker Park at a third-floor walk-up in 1989. We went to random parties in those days. She was so whip-smart, funny, gorgeous, loud, outspoken, sharp bob, vintage 1960s funky red velvet coat, mini skirt, bare legs, chunky black engineer boots. We became fast friends at 21 and 22 and lived together for years in a couple different apartments, blasting PJ Harvey and happily cooking together. She would make osso buco and pork tenderloin and chicken adobo for us, always with a salad. Growing up in Chicago, I didn't know anyone who made a salad for a dinner outside of a dinner party. So I was like, "You're gonna make a salad just for the two of us?" Okay. And she already had a tradition of Friendsgiving going. And so we expanded upon that. And we'd throw these big potluck dinner parties at Thanksgiving. We'd invite 60 people over. People would bring food, help clean up. One year we made invitations for it. And we sewed these fresh, pliable fall leaves on these cards with a sewing machine, which was really cool and surprisingly easy. We had an amazing group of creative friends, many of whom are still around. I wanted to thank our friend from those days, Tanya Quick, who designed this and the seed pods. And Vanessa and I hand painted and stamped all those seed pods for you guys. And Jim Rodney collected all the seeds with his friends. Maria. I just met a girl named Maria. Maria and her loving, devoted husband of almost 31 years, Brad, had a fairy tale romance that began at the first annual prom night at the Empty Bottle in Chicago in 1994. Brad's friends, Red Meat, were the house band and were performing in drag without underwear in these fluffy, thrifted dresses. Maria and I went. Maria was wearing like the slinky black dress and her black rimmed glasses, short hair, slicked back, huge smile, mischievous, I'm sure with a cigarette in her hand. And a martini, extra dirty martini in the other hand. And she played hard to get, but Brad was completely smitten and persistent, and they quickly fell in love. They were married on the beach in Miami in '95, bought a 3-flat apartment building and a former sausage factory, that's so Chicago, on Augusta Street, and they had their first daughter, Olivia, there. Brad had a successful music studio in Chicago with Brian, but Maria really, really wanted to be on the West Coast, and Brad understood how important paying attention and nurturing this young relationship was. So the family moved out west to California when Olivia was a toddler. They bought a Spanish house on a leafy street and built a music studio in the guest house and garage. Their second daughter, Vanessa, was born here. I had recently moved to LA, mostly because they were here. I remember Maria putting tinned sardines and jars of blue cheese stuffed olives in Vanessa's stocking when she was like about 6. And saying this was like her father, George, reborn. And Maria and Brad, honestly, were some of the best parents I've had the pleasure to learn from. And their daughters, now almost 23 and 29, are stellar human beings. Smart, fun, easygoing, self-aware, adventurous, and kind. Able to have a real and actually interesting conversation since they were very little. And Maria and Brad were both very social beings and continually opened up their house, and including to me when I was moving to LA, and many other friends when they were moving here. Passing through LA on their way to find their way in LA. And we all found the kind of generous, invigorating, creative environment we all came out west looking for, mostly because of the environment they had in their home and their openness. And the food, oh boy. Maria was one of the best cooks out there, but perhaps more interestingly, she was a super adventurous, unabashed eater who loved sharing food and cooking for people. Naturally talented, always pushing boundaries, trying out new flavor profiles, testing new techniques, and on top of this, growing an abundance of vegetables in her front garden with her best friend, Jim Rodney. Where's Jim Rodney? There he is. Fava beans running up trellises, blue-starred borage and white-flowering arugula popping up everywhere. For the pollinators, sturdy lacinato kale, swollen bok choy bulbs, enormous stalked collards that would be selectively harvested when needed. Teeny, tiny, marble-sized potatoes, fresh garlic, sweet peas with their dainty little flowers, all kinds of lettuce, and easily 20 varieties of tomatoes. Maria loved tomatoes, plus a lot of native plants. It was really amazing, and still is. Jim's shepherding it. So many of my memories of Maria involve food, It was such a joy for her, and she loved sharing her cooking. She built a world. She invited you in, she put you to work, and breaking homemade bread with her and her family still is very special. I'm not a religious person and wouldn't quite be able to tell you what the purpose of life is, except to say that these communal moments with your family or your chosen family has everything to do with it. And there was no one who created that strong family like Maria. She passed peacefully but unexpectedly in her sleep, and we all feel the loss. Oh, Maria. The most common name for the most unusual person. Even Brad called you Suarez. Maria, with your big smile, big heart, big laugh, you were larger than life and so fun. Suarez, you will be forever missed. We had 59 years with you, and that's a lot, but we wish there was more. Rest in peace, rest in power, dear friend.
Next, I would like to invite a reader to come up to share a poem by Sharon Olds. And I did not write down the name. It's Jennifer, yes. And then while you're coming up, also, Olivia and Brad, if you would take a seat.
This is by Sharon Olds, who is one of Maria's favorite poets. It's called The Enchantment. When I say to my mother, "What was a good thing about me as a child?" my mother's face seems to unfurl from the center, hibiscus in fast motion, the anthers and flounces spring out with joy. "Oh, you were enchanting," she breathes. "What do you mean? Crazy? No sense of reality?" No, she laughs, with many little notes, half a scale plus grace notes. "I don't know how to say it. You were just enchanting." "Possessed?" I ask. "Brain damaged?" "No," she smiles. "There was something about you, the way you looked at things. I think I get it. That stunned look on my face, in photos, that dumbstruck look, gaze of someone who doesn't understand anything. But a week later, I decide it was a look of wonder. It was bemused pleasure. Days later, I see it, that light on my mother's face. She loved me. And today, I hear her. She did not say enchanted. The woman in whose thrall I am is in my thrall. I came into being within her silks and masses, and after we are gone, would she caper here, my first love? Would she do me the honor of continued ensorceling?"
Hi, everyone. I'm Olivia. Most of you know me, I think, but there's probably a few people here who either I haven't met or haven't seen since I was, like, very small. But I am Maria's eldest daughter. And my remarks are going to be a little unscripted. I've been struggling with what to write, but I have some notes mostly, so it's going to be kind of off the cuff, but I'll try and make it coherent. I want to start off by thanking everyone who's here today, everyone who's watching on the live stream or watching this after the fact, everyone who's supported me and my family over the past 3 months. I feel like every week or every few days, honestly, someone that I know says something to me or does something for me that just like leaves me speechless and stunned from its kindness and profundity, I'm going to remember that kindness for the rest of my life, truly. I also want to especially thank every person who has experienced their own profound loss and offered their love and guidance to me during this time. I was not ready to join the community of the bereaved. I had no time to prepare. But there are people, many of you are in this room, who welcomed me and showed me the way. And that is a gift that I can really never repay. I don't know how you are able to do it. All I know is that I can only hope that one day I will be able to extend the same wisdom and kindness to someone who is in the same situation that I'm in right now. Something I've been thinking about a lot is the way that my mom paid attention. She was such an observant person. She was always noticing things. And the quality of her attention was deep and complex and profound. Those of you in the room who know her, who knew her, are probably aware of the fact that she loved to give advice and recommendations, often unsolicited, but also usually right on the money, you know? She had a way of noticing things about people and offering what she thought that they needed in that moment, even if it wasn't something that they had expressed a desire for. But she was really good at that. She was really good at paying attention and remembering things. And I can't tell you how many times I would like go out and spend time with friends and come back afterwards, and she would be like, tell me all about it. You know, she'd be like, how's this person doing? Or how's that person doing? And she remembered things. Or I would have friends come visit, and she would engage them in like deep conversation about, you know, what they were doing, what their life was like, what their plans were for the future. And then if she saw them again, she would follow up. She remembered things. And I don't know, I've been, especially with the number of friends of mine who have been reaching out over the past few months and sharing their memories of my mom, I'm realizing that that's not, like, not every mom does that, you know? I mean, the good ones do, I guess, but a lot of people, friends of mine, have been reaching out to say how much it meant to them that my mom paid attention and cared for them and didn't like condescend or sort of be like, oh, well, that's interesting, whatever, and kind of like wave them off. But like she really cared, she really paid attention. And it's amazing that she was able to do that for so many people. Like, I truly don't know where she found the energy, the fortitude, the ability to hold all of that in her mind and in her heart. I think she had a gift. And I've also been thinking a lot about how she paid attention to me and to my sister. Because, as folks have mentioned already today, we were the center of her world. And I knew that. I never doubted for a second. It was never a question that Vanessa and I were her priorities and were her everything. I want to share a story, something I've been thinking about a lot. This was in 2019, the summer after I had graduated from college, and I was not doing well. I was really depressed. I did not have the greatest experience in college. And once I had gotten my degree, I felt pretty directionless. And I didn't have a job. I was just living in my old bedroom from childhood and struggling with depression. And I remember there was one day where I was sitting at the kitchen counter and looking through an old photo album, and it was an album of photographs from a family vacation that my parents and my sister and I had taken up in Mammoth, California, Mammoth Lakes, which was a beloved vacation spot. My mom loved fishing, and so she would spend a lot of time at the lake fishing there. And my mom loved to take pictures. She was a really good amateur photographer, just like her friend Jim and also Anthony. I know you guys talked photography a lot, but she was always the one with the camera, or most of the time she was the one with the camera when we did things as a family. And so she's not in a ton of these photos, but she was the one taking the photographs. And I remember, so in 2019, I was looking at this photo album, and there was this one photograph that she had taken of me at the top of like a climbing structure at a park, and I was maybe like 10, 12 years old. And I was standing there on top of the climbing structure with a huge smile on my face, looking very accomplished, my hands in the air like this. And I looked at this photo and I started crying because in that moment, feeling so sad and so down, I felt like I was never going to be that happy again. Life was never going to be simple again. Life was never going to be easy, and I would never be as confident of my place in the world as I was when that picture was taken. And my mom came into the kitchen and saw me crying, and she asked me what was wrong. And I said, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm for. I don't know what my life is for. And she came over and she gave me a hug, a big hug. She wrapped me in her arms and she whispered in my ear, she said, "You're my firstborn." That was all I had to be for my life to have meaning for her. And it's beyond me how she was able to see everything I was and everything that I am and love all of it and recognize all of it. I think she's the person in the world who understood me the best. I think she knew things about me that I don't know about myself and that I might never know, and now I'll never get to ask her. But I can try to extend that love to myself, which is something that I struggle with. Because, yeah, I am Maria Suarez's firstborn, and that's everything. That was enough for her. That was everything for her. And the best way I can honor her is by continuing to be that and letting it be everything for me. Thanks.
Welcome. Deeply affected with or struck by strong feelings of attraction, affection, or infatuation. Suddenly affected by something such as a strong emotion or a serious illness. The word is smitten, as defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary. And I know it's a cliche to begin any speech or eulogy with a dictionary description. But the truth is, I found myself looking up the definition of smitten these last few weeks. After having used this word for the last 32 years when talking about my reaction to seeing Maria Suarez for the first time. It was across the room at a bar, the Empty Bottle in Chicago, and Maria was doing what I soon learned was pretty commonplace for her. She was holding an extra dirty gin martini with 3 olives in one hand, a lit cigarette in the other hand, laughing loudly, smiling with her enormous smile with her group of friends, her huge eyes bright and shining, like some smoking, drunken lemur or a mythic woodland creature. I don't know. But I was smitten. Less than 12 hours after she refused to give me her phone number, I was looking through the local Chicago phone book for a Maria Suarez, and there were over 40 of them, calling each number until I heard her deep rasp, "Hello?" Our first date was 2 days later. We were engaged 4 months after that, and 11 months from our first meeting, we were married on a beach on April Fool's Day, 1995. That was deliberate. What came next was, in hindsight, something like living a complete lifetime or two in just 30-some years. Life with Maria was a blur of activity. When we first met, she would read me to sleep most nights, usually Sharon Olds, E. Cummings, or some other poet she loved. It was nice to hear her voice, hear these curated words, and give in to Maria's love of the written word, while I fell in love with her voice and her slender but oddly scarred hands and fingers as she turned the pages. I rarely saw Maria go to sleep at night back then. Like I said, she was a blur of activity late into almost every evening. There was always something new to read, something old and favored to read again and again, some new interest she would be researching. This never stopped in our 3 decades together. Maria never stopped. And I know she shared this trait with her mother, Sugi, a dynamo of a person who rarely sits still. I mean this in the best way. You have no off switch, Sugi. Sugi makes things, she puts things in order, she plans and executes to perfection, and Maria shared that with you. I think Maria's endless curiosity, her searching mind, comes largely from her father, George. Maria talked often about movie nights when she was a teenager with George, followed by late dinner and ice cream at a deli, where they would talk at length about what they'd just seen, the politics of the film, the quality of the direction and screenwriting. What great parents she had. When we discussed becoming parents ourselves, Maria initially told me she wanted 4 or 5 children. Horrified, I called my own mother to tell her about this. Phyllis laughed and said, "Ask her again how many kids she wants after she's had the first one." With Maria, there were always plans being made. Sure, we both wanted children, but there had to be a plan first. Setting aside her giant brood plan, Maria threw herself into the hows and whats and whys of pregnancy and motherhood. She seemed to read every book, asked every friend who had had kids about all of it, prepared herself and our house for what was to come. And about that house, we'd just barely finished the total renovation of a 3-story Greystone, attached smokehouse because, as someone mentioned earlier, yes, this is Chicago, and there often is a smokehouse involved, with our friends Carrie and Brian. Maria didn't need to take a breather, not for Suki Suarez's daughter, no. So then there was Olivia Asta, and I watched how the same intensity Maria put into our relationship was now directed at this new life, this new fascination for Maria, for both of us. And it was with Olivia's birth that I realized just how lucky I was to be partnered with a person with so much capacity and competency for life, like for creating and nurturing a life, for observing a life, making plans for her, adapting to Olivia's unique needs, and searching for ways to feed this child's mind and spirit. And what had I done? I'd won the lottery. I won life's lottery. When we moved to Los Angeles in 2000, we both felt like this was a reward for ourselves. Maria had wanted to live once again in a place where the weather was warm, where she didn't feel so other, where more people who looked like her lived. Not too long after we settled into life in LA, we decided to have another child, and plans needed to be made. Based on previous empirical evidence with her first go, Maria researched ways to have a smoother pregnancy and childbirth, and she did. Vanessa Simone arrived in 2003, 6 years after Olivia's birth in 1997. 6 years of note-taking, journaling, observing, planning, and living. Vanessa got the same devotion from Maria that Olivia did. Maria observed and identified V's love of movement and dance, of cooking and alchemy. How lucky these children are, joining their dad in the winning the lottery club by having Maria as their mom. Quickly, some random facts about Maria Suarez. She could drive a stick shift very, very well. She loved linen shirts, especially very bright white ones, big and open. I think she liked the tropical look and feel of them. Maria was kind of sloppy. She often spilled liquids on the floor, on the counter, on herself, on her especially bright white linen shirts, usually mere minutes after putting that shirt on. And this was a source of endless amusement for us. Maria's nose had a little vertical seam at the center of the tip. I think she shared that with her father. Maria was a terrible, terrible, terrible morning person. A literal beast. I learned early that by bringing her a cup of coffee or tea to her in bed, I could ease the transition from terrible morning beast to human being. And I did this almost every day for 32 years, something like 22,000 cups of coffee or tea, if you count refills, and there were always refills. Maria had this way of staring at you while you told her a story or answered a question. Her eyes lit up, her mouth smiling and silently mouthing the words she anticipated you might say, as if coaxing the sentences out of you, getting you to tell her this exciting tidbit of information that she made you feel like telling her because she was so interested in what she thought you might say. Amazing. It was a charming and effective way of making the people around her feel really smart, really seen, and really heard. Maria was almost never quiet. She emitted all manner of sounds. She stepped heavily at night, especially. She shouted for her girls or for her Jim Rodney. She laughed loudly in a variety of cackles and guffaws. When Maria went back to the working world, she took the same energy and love of research to her jobs. The people who she worked with seemed to have the same effect or same reaction we all did. They loved being around her. They often would be doing the same things she was doing: gardening, baking bread, reading books that she liked, cooking with her, knitting, watching the same movies and television shows. It was always the same with Maria. She gathered friends easily, made new besties, cried and laughed as easily with them as she would with her own family. She was expansive. She added people to her world. She cooked for them, nurtured them, challenged them to do something different or better or more considered. As we got older, the moments of intensity I felt with Maria eased. It had to. How can you sustain the intensity of first love? It could be addicting and disappointing to always expect your partnership to provide so much. So our marriage evolved into something more quiet. I liked it. I like to think Maria felt the same way. The last 5 years or so, Maria took pride in our daughter's accomplishments, her satisfaction in her work, and especially her gardening. That same intensity, the same passion that I saw her display 32 years ago, on display still. It's at this point that I begin to fail at the task of writing my wife's eulogy. I know that today is a celebration of life, and what a wonderful life Maria had. I thought that 3 months past her death would provide me with enough time to feel like celebrating, but it hasn't. She was only 59. She was born with a heart defect that no one knew about, and her death while asleep next to me was sudden and shocking. We are still in some state of shock. Maria was looking forward to this summer. The night before she died, we had discussed our plans for a family trip to the UK in July. She wanted to get the planning started for this trip, asked me to get our calendars together over the weekend, always planning and always in motion. And then that motion stopped. And just as swiftly as she had smitten me in 1994, how she had changed my life in an instant, Maria Suarez left us. With no warning, no plan, our lives changed once again in a moment. This wonderful, magical human who created life, nurtured life, is now gone. And I'm grateful for the time I spent with her as her partner for 32 years. But it was not enough. And it will have to do. I want to thank all the family and friends who have supported Vanessa, Olivia, and I during this time. And I want to thank you, Maria. Thank you so much. I love you, and I am smitten.
So there are many worldviews and traditions here, much of which says that our experience of death is not the final word. So we come to this sort of edge, this threshold, and the closing of our time in a formal service together. And so, as I warned you, we're going to do it with the Lord's Prayer. So I invite you to sturdy your body and to rise to your feet. And yes, the words are in the program if you like. Maybe you know them, and no one will judge you whether you participate or not. This is a time for us to sort of maybe even shake out your limbs a little bit, because as promised, we have the rest of the day and many days, and the grief will continue with us. So please join me in the prayer that Jesus taught his disciples to pray with confidence. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. As Tom Petty sings us out, feel free to linger, and there are refreshments downstairs.
Well, she was at
announcement, like, because they're ready to go. Some people have figured it out.
It's over that way, right?
Through
Down?
that door there.
No,
I'm not,
no,
I just
no.
mean people are having a hard
Oh,
time.
you
They're
mean-
like
you
not
mean
sure where they're
like,
going. So I was like, if we just tell people the
Oh,
food's
like on the
downstairs.
microphone?
Yeah, I can, you can. It doesn't really matter.
Can if you want. Okay. And where do I tell them to go? Either side.
Out that door, down.
And there's Portos, there's kimbap.
Okay, I don't know if I'll go into detail.
Okay, just say, okay.
Everyone, there's some refreshments, some really delicious food, portos, kimbap. Outside, take a right and go downstairs.
Out the doors.
Out the doors and go downstairs. Out the doors of this room.
This one, yeah.
Yeah, I think they got that.
Okay.
Saw it written and I saw it say, Bingo Moon is on its way. None of you stand so tall. Bingo Moon, gonna get you all. It's a Bingo Moon. Yes, Bingo Moon. Bing, 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 bing. Bingo Moon. Bing, 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 bing. Bingo Moon. Saw it written and I saw it say, Bingo Moon is on its way. None of you stand so tall. Bingo Moon, gonna get you home. It's a Bingo Moon. Yeah, Bingo Moon. Sometimes I feel so happy. Sometimes I feel so sad. Sometimes I feel so happy. But mostly you just make me mad. Baby, you just make me mad. Linger on, your pale blue eyes. Linger on, your pale blue eyes. Thought of you as my mountaintop. Thought of you as my peak. Thought of you as everything I've had but couldn't keep. I've had but couldn't keep. Linger on, your pale blue eyes. Linger on, your pale blue eyes. If I could make the world as pure and strange as what I see, I'd put you in the mirror I put in front of me. I put in front of me. Linger on, your pale blue eyes. Linger on, your pale blue eyes. stuff it in a cup. She said money is like us in time. It lies but can't stand up. Down for you is up. Linger on, your pale blue eyes. Linger on, your pale blue eyes. It was good what we did yesterday, and I'd do it once again. The fact that you are married only proves you're my best friend. But it's true.